Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to our Gita Jayanthi special. So today's chapter that we will be covering is chapter number 5, Karma Sannyasa Yoga. Literally translates to the yoga of action and knowledge. And Prabhupada translates the title of this chapter to Action in Krishna Consciousness, which is actually the yoga of action and knowledge put together, is actually acting in Krishna consciousness. But before we do that, let's just take a quick tour of what we've covered so far. So we said that in chapter 1, Arjuna is lamenting because he gets confused about what his real identity is. And when you get confused about your identity, then you tend to lose vision. And when you've lost vision, you lose your determination and you become bewildered. And that is what Arjuna is exhibiting here. And because Arjuna is lamenting as a result of forgetting who he is, who he truly is, which is that he is a spirit soul, Krishna has to establish his identity for him in chapter 2. So, but of course, Krishna only establishes that identity at the request of Arjuna. So Arjuna was saying, I'm dealing with all these demons. Can you kill these demons that I am grappling with by guiding me, Krishna? Because Arjuna confesses that I'm confused about what is my real duty. And because I'm so confused, I've lost my composure. And because I've lost my composure, I feel quite weak-minded. Then he says, I am your disciple, a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. So the role of a guru is to guide the student and to set certain basic aspects of philosophy from a spiritual standpoint as the foundation. We said Arjuna is a Nitya Siddha. It's not that he does not know these things. If he didn't know these things, how could he be associating with the Supreme Lord? But because the Bhagavad Gita was meant to be spoken, Krishna selects Arjuna to receive this knowledge. So in the 3rd chapter, after Krishna has established Arjuna's identity as a spirit soul, then the next question is, now that you know who you are, the next question is, what am I supposed to do? Which is, what's my job? What's my duties and responsibilities? So, so in the 3rd chapter, Krishna says, the topmost duty for each one of us is to actually work for the pleasure and satisfaction of Vishnu. And so Krishna is saying, work for me and do this as a sacrifice. So after clarifying what is our topmost duty and responsibility in chapter 3, and the importance of duties and responsibilities both on the bodily platform as well as the spiritual platform, in order to perform one's work, we need skill sets, we need knowledge. So in the 4th chapter, if Krishna is saying you have to work for me, but you can work for me after knowing who you are and after knowing who I am, because otherwise you may not be performing your work in the right manner. So if the goal of the Vedic scriptures is to learn about Krishna and to love him, how can you love someone if you first of all don't understand yourself and you don't understand the object of your love, here the object of your love being Krishna, and also what is the position of the object of your love in comparison with your position? If you do not understand these basic precepts, how can you hope to please Krishna by working for him? So this knowledge is what was covered by Krishna in chapter 4. So because we have forgotten who we are as a result of so many years and years and millions of births and our consciousness being conditioned by so many different births, we have a tendency to forget who we are. What happens is that we move further and further away from Krishna, and we become attached to the concepts of I, me, mine. This is my family, my husband, my nation, my community, my property, my intelligence. This happens over millions of years of births, death, old age, and disease. So slowly we begin to forget that actually we are all servants of Krishna. So we've forgotten our ID card and we have accepted some other ID card. And in that process, we've also forgotten our qualification. Our Nitya Dharma is to serve Krishna. But how can we serve Krishna without first knowing who he is? So in the 4th chapter, for the very first time in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord openly declares that he is the Supreme Lord. So he's waited for Arjuna to understand who he is. He's waited for Arjuna to understand what his basic duties and responsibilities are. And then in the 4th chapter, the Lord says, I come frequently to re-establish Dharma. So, we were talking about how Shripad Adi Sankaracharya was saying that, and how Lord Shiva tells Parvati Devi that just like we take a bath every day using water to cleanse our body, similarly, we need something to cleanse our mind and intelligence. What is it that we can use? What is that disinfectant that can be used to declog, declutter, and sanctify your mind and intelligence? Well, then we have to bathe our intelligence in the transcendental knowledge. So this is the transcendental knowledge that the Lord defines in chapter 4. That transcendental knowledge is about the relationship between the Jivatma and Paramatma, the position of the Jivatma in relation to Paramatma. What are the duties and responsibilities of the Jivatma towards the Paramatma? So by accepting this transcendental knowledge and by immersing ourselves in this water of divine knowledge, we will slowly be able to purify our minds and intelligence. And in this way, slowly we will also be able to satisfy Lord Vishnu. So in chapter 3, Krishna has said, work for me, work to please me, don't work to please yourself. Which means Krishna is saying, don't be engaged in karma kanda or sakama karma yoga. At best, what will please me is nishkama karma yoga, which is you are attached to your duties and you are detached from the results. This pleases me a lot, Krishna says. And then Krishna begins to speak about where and how this knowledge actually comes from, this transcendental knowledge that he has defined. And Krishna says, I have actually revealed this knowledge many times before. And on one such occasion, I revealed this knowledge to Vivaswan, who in turn revealed it to Manu, who in turn reveals it to Ikshvaku. And from there on, this knowledge, this transcendental knowledge about Jivatma, Paramatma, and the relationship between them has been coming down in Guru Parampara. So this knowledge originates in Krishna. How is this knowledge received? In Guru Parampara. Who can understand this knowledge? Someone who is a devotee and friend of Krishna. What is the process of getting this knowledge? Tadvidhi pranipatena. So by humbly approaching a spiritual master, the 3 S's, surrendering to the spiritual master, submissively asking questions, and also doing seva to please the spiritual master. Just like there are 3 D's as to why Krishna says he comes. I come for my devotees, I come to annihilate the demons, and then I come to re-establish Dharma. 3 D's, 3 reasons why Krishna comes. The word avatar means to descend. So literally the Lord descends from the spiritual universe into the material universe just for the pleasure of his devotees. Only then the demons come into picture, and only then dharma comes into the picture. So the two very famous shlokas, which is shlokas 7 and 8, yeah? Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuttanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham. So whenever and wherever there is a decline in religion and a predominant rise in irreligion, Krishna says, I myself appear millennium after millennium. Then in the next shloka, Krishna says, Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam sambhavami dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Again, Krishna says, in every millennium, I come to protect my devotees, to annihilate the demons, and to re-establish dharma, the 3Ds. We said the Lord can annihilate the demons and also re-establish dharma from wherever he is. He doesn't have to descend. So that means the Lord is actually taking various avatars just for the pleasure of his devotees, just so that his devotees can see the Lord and experience that transcendental bliss. So what is Krishna doing in this chapter? He's distinguishing between karma and karma yoga. In this chapter, we also talked about 3 definitions of karma, which is karma, vikarma, and akarma. And karma meaning pious activities for which you will be rewarded. Vikarma means impious activities for which you will be punished. And akarma are devotional activities for which the bank balance only keeps expanding. You don't deduct anything from that bank balance. We talked about the process of birth, how it actually operates, what is prarabdha karma, what is sankshipta karma, and what is agami. These things we discussed yesterday using the water tank analogy with an inlet pipe and the outlet pipe. The inlet pipe you control, the outlet pipe, the rate of withdrawal is actually predetermined by the Lord. Based on that, you get a combination of good experiences and bad experiences as a human being. So there will be ups and downs in life because of past karmic phala that we have accumulated. So nobody is different. We always think other people are enjoying themselves. I'm the only one that is suffering. But in reality, everybody is suffering. Everybody experiences momentary happiness, but ultimately we are all suffering. Krishna then says, I've constructed this entire varnashrama to help you come to this path of spirituality so that you can explore the spiritual knowledge and ultimately ask that question, Athato Brahma Jignasa. Now that I have taken a human form, what is my duty? So, initially Arjuna thought, I don't have to fight. I can use my intelligence to walk away from this war. And Krishna has to correct him and say, not fighting will result in a lot more papa than fighting. Actually, fighting for me will not result in any punya or in papa. It will only result in sukriti. And you recall the analogy of a soldier working on behalf of and for the government versus working for himself. When he works on behalf and for the benefit of the government, which is the superior authority, which is the topmost authority, then he is rewarded for his good work. Even he is rewarded for killing, because that's what the government wanted him to do, to uphold dharma. If that same soldier decides to work outside the boundaries of government, then he is promptly punished for it. So Krishna talks about yajna as well and different types of yajna in this chapter, which we didn't go over the shlokas. So yajna is not just a fire sacrifice. Chanting the holy names is sacrifice. It's a Kali Yuga sacrifice. That is also considered a sacrifice. What is the reason we have to do all this yajna? To purify ourselves. Because once we purify ourselves, we are ready to receive this transcendental knowledge. But interestingly, Krishna says, if you're practicing bhakti, there is no precondition to get purity before you can actually practice bhakti. Bhakti itself purifies you. Whereas in Jnana Yoga and Dhyana Yoga, you have to purify yourself before you can practice it. So, which means there are preconditions for a Jnani and a Yogi. There are no preconditions for a Bhakta. The Lord is so magnanimous and so generous that He has made it easy for us to practice Bhakti, and the process of practicing Bhakti itself purifies us. Krishna also says, Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam stataiva bhajamyaham mama vartmanu vartante manushyaah partha sarvashah. Krishna is saying, I reciprocate with everyone, but I reciprocate with them based on their level of surrender. Everybody is actually searching for me. So if you are looking for fame, fame is an energy potency of the Lord. It's a quality of the Lord. If you are looking for intelligence, intelligence comes from the Lord. Beauty comes from the Lord. Renunciation comes from the Lord. Wealth comes from the Lord. So Krishna is saying, why is it that you're actually looking for me, but you're looking for my energy, but you don't want me? And there are two examples of demoniac personalities who are like this. Ravana wanted Sita Devi, but not Rama. Duryodhana wanted the Narayani Sena, but not Krishna. Krishna is saying that is materialistic way of thinking. In the sense, you want what I have to offer you, but you don't want me. The person who can offer you everything that you want, why do you reject that person and only want what they have to offer? Isn't that very selfish? Therefore, Krishna says, Ye yatha mam pravadyante, tam stataiva bhajamyaham. Depending on how you surrender to me, I will reciprocate with you. If you only want my energies, but you don't want me, some point or the other, it's going to create a huge problem for you, as it did for Ravana and Duryodhana. So, we also talked about how different paths may lead to different destinations. And some paths are permanent and some paths are impermanent. For the karmis, since they are anyway interested in fulfilling the material desires, as long as they follow the Vedic scriptures and do all the necessary rituals and pujas, they get what they want. The jnanis who are trying to attain Brahman through the process of knowledge, they have to endeavor on their own. So even jnanis and yogis do not seek the Lord's help to make advancement in spiritual life. They want to do it on their own. A devotee is very clever. He knows he can make the fastest progress when he asks the Lord to help him in devotional service. So, in our scriptures, give a wonderful analogy of this comparison. A baby monkey has to cling on to the mother when the mother monkey jumps from branch to branch, tree to tree. The mother is too busy to care about the baby, and the baby has to use its own independence and power to make sure it does not fall down. That is the position of the Jnanis and Yogis. They try to do it on their own. Whereas a Bhakta, the analogy used here is a kitten and a cat. When the kitten cries, the mother immediately rushes, picks up the kitten with her mouth, and she rescues the kitten that way, or moves the kitten away from a position of danger. The devotees are like that. We just cry out to the Lord, and the Lord, with sincerity, of course, and the Lord comes and picks us up, helps us, guides us. So Krishna is saying, actually, my devotees, they really know how to capture me and capture my heart. Jnanis are interested in Brahman realization. Yogis are interested in Paramatma realization. It is only the bhaktas who are interested in Bhagavan realization. Therefore, the devotees are considered to be superior to the Jnani and the Yogi. So, coming back to the Varna and Ashrama, Krishna says that I've actually created this socio-economic system in such a way that the four Varnas and the four Ashramas can cooperate with each other to make progress on the path of spirituality. That is the only way in which we can help each other and create this support system for each other. So, this Varnashrama is not meant to be a system of exploitation by one group over the other. And then Krishna says, well, where can you find this knowledge? Well, if you want to truly understand the deeper significance of Jivatma, Paramatma, and the Sambandha that they have with each other, then the right person to approach would be a bona fide guru. And Krishna says, Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninastattvadarshinaha. So, first approach a spiritual master, surrender to him, be submissive in how you ask questions and seek clarity, and most importantly, you must offer him some service. In this way, when you learn to please the Guru, you will automatically please Krishna. When the Guru is merciful to you, you also simultaneously receive the mercy of Krishna. Krishna wants to see how you commit yourself to this path through the process that he himself is saying. Approach a guru to learn this knowledge. And then, whatever sadhana that your guru asks you to perform, you do that very diligently. And on top of that, any other services that your guru assigns you or instructs you, you should take that up as your very life's instruction. Why? Because such gurus are self realized souls. They are tattva-darshihi, they have seen the truth. And the benefit of approaching a guru is that one never falls into illusion. The very first shloka that we recite, Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. What does the guru do to you? If you have cataract in your eyes, he takes out that cataract and allows you to see the real thing and not be under illusion. How does he do this? The medicine that he gives you through your ears is spiritual, scriptural knowledge about who's God, who you are, and what is your sambandha with God. So, first thing is that your illusion gets wiped out. so that you are situated in your real position. You always remember that your spirit soul, you are here to please Krishna. Everything else is secondary. You are here to serve Guru, Sadhus, and Vaishnavas. And by doing so, Krishna says you will cross this ocean of miseries just by approaching a Guru and faithfully following his instructions. Not only that, your karmic reactions will get wiped out. When you're very nicely performing services under the instructions and guidance of a Guru. But then Krishna also concludes by saying, not everybody has faith. You must have some faith that the process will work. You must have some faith that God exists. You must have some faith that Guru can deliver you back to Krishna safely. But then there are categories of people who are not at all interested, who are not ready, who do not know. Krishna calls them ignorant and faithless, saying they doubt the scriptures. Not just any scripture. Krishna says they doubt the revealed scriptures. So in summary, this particular chapter is about how you rise from material consciousness to Krishna consciousness through the process of transcendental knowledge. So the Lord descends to help the human being ascend. So the divinity descends to help the human ascend by providing him the necessary knowledge. What does this transcendental knowledge mean? This transcendental knowledge means learning how to act without getting entangled in your activities, and through this process become liberated. So we all have to have that desire to have Krishna in our life. Otherwise, we are selfishly enjoying Krishna's opulences, but we don't want Krishna in our life, and that is not good for us. So we should not want God's kingdom without God. If we want God's kingdom, we have to accept God first. And these are the demoniac traits that we have to overcome. So the divine is descending to help the human being ascend, not physically, from a consciousness standpoint. And we talked about the 3 Ds, the devotee, the demons, and dharma. We talked about the 3 S's for Guru, which is surrender, submissive inquiry, and seva. Yeah. So even in science, you have to have faith. So when Newton saw the apple fall from the tree, he knew that it was not an accident. He didn't know what was causing it to fall from the tree, but he definitely knew that there was some force acting on the apple to fall from the tree. So even cause and effect can be seen in spite of our not understanding how that cause and effect actually works. So that means even science is based on faith. We get into relationships based on faith. We study expecting a degree from the university based on faith. We drive on the street based on faith that other people also know the rules of driving on the street. There is faith everywhere. Without faith, we cannot function. It's just that some of us are so misguided that we are not ready to acknowledge God, and worse, some of us even reject the presence of God. So the transcendental knowledge helps one overcome our own destructive tendencies. So we are all ultimately self-destructive, right? How are we self-destructive? When we don't want God in our life, we are doing atmahatya. We are killing the soul. Obviously, we cannot kill the soul, but we are not giving the soul what it really desires, which is Krishna. So all of us are doing atmahatya every day because we don't care for Krishna. This atmahatya is spoken about in the Ishopanishad. So we should stop doing this atmahatya. We must have some faith in Krishna and begin our spiritual journey. Now, how are chapters 3 and 4 looked at from a different lens? And then we'll begin chapter 5. We have two internal enemies, His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu says. One is our desires and one is our doubts. Again, two Ds who are our enemies, our desires and our doubts. Our desires originate in our mind, and this is what Krishna is addressing in chapter 3. Mind your desires. Our doubts originate in our intelligence, and this is what Krishna is addressing in chapter 4. He's telling us how to overcome our baser desires in chapter 3 by beginning the process of performing yajna. He's telling us how to overcome our doubts by the process of approaching a spiritual master and seeking clarity on this divine knowledge. So how can you combat your doubts? By studying and learning the scriptures. How can you combat your desires? By performing yajna. In this case, whatever the Guru says should be your daily sadhana, that sadhana must be performed. So the doubts that we have act like brakes in the car of spiritual progress. Faith acts like an accelerator in the car of spiritual progress. So today's chapter is Karma Sannyasa Yoga. How do you mix karma and sannyasa together, which is action and Krishna consciousness? Before we begin, let's offer our most humble obeisances to His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So our acronym today is STEP. So chapter 5 will begin again with Arjuna being confused. So Arjuna is confused again. So we'll figure out what is his confusion. Why is he confused? So the question for Arjuna is, should he stay in the world or should he leave? Then Krishna talks about the three doers, that a human being can desire, but just because he desires doesn't mean he gets. There are other things that come into play, and we'll discover what that is. Krishna comes back and talks about this Nishkama Karma Yogi, how he sees Atmas in everybody and the Paramatmas in everybody. So he does not discriminate based on religion or the clothes or the type of body or the color of their body or the type of religion they are practicing. Remember, we said today's single word summary is result. The result of learning everything and applying everything that we have heard in chapters 2, 3, 4 comes in chapter 5. The result is peace. Peace means no anxiety. So Arjuna is confused again. So let us see how this chapter begins. So Arjuna says, "O Krishna, first of all, you ask me to renounce work. And then again, you recommend work with devotion. Now, will you kindly tell me definitely which of the two is more beneficial?" So, what is Arjuna asking? Which is better? Should I work with devotion? Because that's what you seem to have spoken about in chapter 4. You told how your devotees are so sublime. So, in chapter 3, Krishna has talked about Karma Yoga. In chapter 4, how you can renounce everything and become a devotee of the Lord. So, Arjuna is now in a dilemma. So, should I carry on fighting and offer the results to you, or should I just dedicate myself to you? So, the question comes back to that original question: how can you fight and remember Krishna simultaneously? How can you be doing your duty and simultaneously be pleasing Krishna? In order to please Krishna, do I not need to renounce? How are both possible simultaneously? And this we learned from the pastime of Janaka Maharaj, how the great sages came to him and asked him, how is it that your sadhana is super excellent, you're a great devotee of the Lord, and simultaneously you have so many responsibilities to perform. How do you manage to do all of that? So the Lord replies, the renunciation of work and work in devotion are both good for liberation, which means becoming a sannyasi is good for liberation. Working in devotion is also good for liberation. And then Krishna tells you which one he prefers or which is the better path. But of the two, work in devotional service is better than renunciation of work. So Krishna is saying, wherever you are, you just perform devotional service to me. That will really please me than trying to give up your uh, ashrama and go directly to becoming a sannyasi. One who neither hates nor desires the fruits of his activities is known to be always renounced. So Krishna is saying, you can work for me. You don't, he, in the previous chapter, he said, develop this, cut away from raga and dvesha, attachment and, lamentation, which just creates so many dualities for us in life. He's saying, you can work for me, you can do your duty without being attached to the results. Just add me into the picture. Such a person, free from all dualities, easily overcomes material bondage and is completely liberated, O mighty Amraj. So Krishna is saying, you can perform your duties and responsibilities perfectly and still be completely self-realized. So we said, right, great acharyas, they don't have any work to do. Krishna says that in chapter 3. I don't have any work to do. Krishna says in chapter 3. But still, I do my duty and responsibility. Still, great kings like Janaka Maharaj, they are already self-realized souls. Once you are self-realized, there's nothing for you to do, right? You have understood everything and you are completely absorbed in the Lord. What is there left for you to do? You don't have any duties and responsibilities. But Krishna is saying, don't do that. You just continue wherever you are. Just add me to the equation. Then I will consider you completely liberated. So then Krishna says, only the ignorant speak of devotional service, karma yoga, as being different from the analytical study of the material world, Sankhya. Those who are actually learned say that he who applies himself well to one of these paths achieve the results of both. Both paths will ultimately lead you to liberation, but Krishna is saying devotional service is better. It is easier, and we'll discover today why it is easy. So, what is Arjuna's conundrum? Work or renounce? Become sannyasi or work for Krishna? So, when you work in devotion, it allows us to act from our original position. Constitutionally, the scriptures say that we are all meant to serve. Without service, our life feels empty. It is because of this we get into relationships, we get married, we have children, because we want to serve. If we only wanted to enjoy ourselves, then we can all stay single and not worry about taking on any responsibilities except for ourselves. This institution of marriage itself clearly tells you that we need to serve someone else that makes us happy. So if that is your original constitution position, then serving Krishna will come automatically because that's what you enjoy doing anyway. Whereas in renunciation, you negate everything. You negate your family, you give up your family, you give up your wealth, you give up fame, you give up everything. Only the soul is engaged in activities, and Krishna says that's going to be a difficult position to maintain because a human being has natural desires. Devotional service purifies your heart in the process of doing your service. Whereas to become a sannyasi, you have to purify your heart first. In the sense, after you've rejected everything, that doesn't purify your heart. You have to purify your heart and then accept service. So obviously, devotional service is much more joyful because everything can be engaged in service of Krishna. Your eyes, your ears, your nose, your mouth, your tongue. Whereas in renunciation, you have to artificially reject everything. Therefore, when the senses are negated, you tend to struggle to hold on to being a renounced person. Somewhere the temptation may come and take you away from that path. Whereas there is no question of this kind of unnecessary temptation because anyway your senses are engaged in serving Krishna. And therefore, when all your senses, including your mind and intelligence, are engaged in the service of Krishna, Krishna says, you are already liberated. Whereas in the path of renunciation through Jnana Yoga, you have to be successful on your own. And the other thing is that if you don't succeed in one life, finished, you have to go back and start all over again. Whereas in Bhakti Yoga, even if you start in this life and you are not able to go back to the spiritual world in this life, in your next birth, you are assured, as we will discover in chapter 6, to start off where you left in your previous birth. So let us say you came up to 4th grade in spirituality in your previous birth. In your next birth, you don't have to start from kindergarten again. You can start from 5th grade. That is not the case for the jnani. If the jnani is unsuccessful in one life, in the next life, he has to go back to kindergarten and start all over again. But Krishna says in chapter 6, even a little bit of devotional service can protect you. So, how to act in Karma Yoga? Remember, there is two kinds of Karma Yoga. Sakama Karma Yoga and Nishkama Karma Yoga. Sakama Karma Yoga, you're attached to the duty, but you're also attached to the results. In Nishkama Karma Yoga, you are attached to the duty, but you're detached from the results. Now, Krishna is saying, just add me to the picture in Nishkama Karma Yoga, and suddenly you're practicing Bhakti Yoga. How? By keeping the minds and senses under control, acting without attachment and without any desire for any specific results, which means You act for the pleasure of Krishna, and whatever Krishna gives you or doesn't give you, you just accept it. But everything is engaged. Your body, your mind, and the senses are engaged in the purificatory process simply through regulation. What is the result of such work? Wherein you're doing everything to please Krishna. Krishna says, Brahmanyadhaya karmani sangam tyaktva karoti yaha lipyatena sapapena padmapatram ivam bhasa. One who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results unto the Supreme Lord, is unaffected by sinful action, as the lotus leaf is untouched by water. If you've ever observed a lotus in the water, it is residing on the water, but it does not get attached to the water. The water always floats on top of the lotus leaf. So similarly, when you get attached to Krishna, you automatically become detached from material things. You stay free of contamination. So such a person is unaffected by sinful reaction. Such a person is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Such a person attains peace, and therefore there is no anxiety in his life. Now, Arjuna is thinking, how can I be goal oriented and at the same time not worry about the outcome? Because you set the goal because you want to achieve an outcome. Is it possible to set the goal and not worry about the outcome? Yes. You set the goal, and after that you become absorbed in the activities to achieve that goal and not be distracted whether you're achieving it or not, how quickly or how much time it's taking for you to achieve that goal. In the sense, once you've set the goal, you become absorbed in activities to achieve that goal. So once your goal is to get Krishna in your life, you just become absorbed in activities that will ultimately take you to Krishna. You don't have to constantly think, why am I not getting Krishna today? Why am I not getting Krishna? So Krishna is saying, enjoy the journey, don't worry about the results. Right? Krishna talks about the three doers. So Krishna is saying, yeah, you may desire all kinds of outcomes. You have free will, you can choose to do whatever you want. But there has to be others who cooperate. So let's say you have a desire. Krishna says, what's the first thing I do? I check that bank balance, that karma bank balance. If you want something, do you have the credits so that I can sanction it? And if I sanction it, I instruct Prakriti to execute what you've asked for. So there are three doers then. The soul can only desire. The super soul has to sanction your desire. And if the super soul sanctions your desire, material nature executes and carries that out. So obviously, if your desire is positive or negative, super soul has to sanction. Reluctantly, sometimes the super soul has to sanction your negative desires. This is the concept of free will and independence. So, in a nutshell, the jiva has many, many desires that originate in the mind. Ishvara has to sanction that desire based on what credits you have. And then Prakriti simply executes the order. So, what happens when your desire, material desire, is fulfilled? You become very happy. But then, after some time, now that the desire is satisfied, one new desire will arise, and another new one, and another new one, and another new one. And then this is a vicious cycle. You'll never be happy. So, what if you desire and you don't have the credits, and Ishvara does not sanction? Then what happens? You become frustrated, you become lonely, you become hopeless, and you think there is no God, and then you start violating the laws of the Lord. So ultimately, we cannot be desireless, and therefore we need to correct the type of desire that we try to promote for ourselves. So, how do you purify the desires? By adding Krishna into the picture. So, there are all kinds of temptations around us. Everybody is promising you happiness. Every company, if you purchase their gadget, they're promising you happiness. Or they're promising happiness for your family members if you look at insurance companies selling you insurance. But ultimately, are you happy? You're not. So, all these desires are in reality a trap to keep you here. Krishna says somebody who's figured this out and is, only meditating on him. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Shuni Chaiva Shvapakecha Pandita Samadarshinaha. Krishna says the humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater. Krishna says once you realize all of this is just useless, you're just mindlessly chasing something that will never give you happiness. Dhruva Maharaj says when he finally sees the Lord after doing so much tapasya in the forest, he says, "My dear Lord, now that I have seen you, I really don't want a kingdom." But he was actually meditating in the forest that he wanted a kingdom not only greater than his father, his grandfather, but his great grandfather Brahma himself. But because he's so sincere as a young child praying to the Lord, through the intervention of Narada Muni, he gets to see Lord Vishnu. And the minute he lays his eyes on Lord Vishnu, he said, "You are more precious to me than any kingdom." I don't know what I was thinking about. Why am I chasing broken pieces of glasses that are actually going to hurt me? When you are here present before me as a diamond. So, hence Krishna is saying, once a self-realized soul realizes that there's nothing but God and that's all they want in their life, then they see everybody equal. In the sense that they don't have any envy, any anger to anyone. They have only love for everybody. So he sees everyone with equal vision. Vidya Vinaya Sampanni. Pandita Samadarshina. So such a person is not perturbed by so-called happiness and so-called distress. He knows suffering will come. He knows good things will come, but he does not get disturbed. He just learns to tolerate. He is genuinely a kind human being, both within and without. He doesn't have any unrealistic expectations of himself and also of others. And therefore, he leads a peaceful life. This is actually real brotherhood. So when you really love God, what is the outcome? You love everyone. Because everyone's body is a temple for Paramatma. Because Paramatma is residing in everyone's body. So this is the genuine position of a self-realized soul. You can't say, "I love God, but I hate you." Those two cannot go together. If you love God, you automatically love all his creatures, not just human beings. So this chapter concludes with the 29th shloka, where the Lord says, he's summarizing for you who the enjoyer is when you perform all these yajnas. Bhoktaram yajna tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarva bhutanam jnatva mam shantim richati. A person in full consciousness of me knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. This is called the peace formula. Krishna says, first of all, if you know who I am, then you know whatever sacrifices and austerities that you're doing, I'm the one who's accepting the results of your offering. If you know that I am the Supreme Lord, I control all the planets, I control all the demigods. And you should also know that I am your well-wisher and I want only good things for you. If you know these 6 things, then you can attain peace from the pangs of material miseries. So, Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasam. Krishna says ultimately he is the enjoyer. In this beautiful picture, you see all the gopas, when they would have lunch with Krishna, they were so anxious to feed Krishna first. They wanted Krishna to taste what their mothers had made. Saying, hey, my mother made puliogare today, or my mother made curd rice today, or my mother made aloo paratha today. Krishna, please taste. Their enjoyment came from seeing Krishna enjoying what their mothers had made for them. Therefore, Krishna says, Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasam. All of you should know, whatever little things that you're doing in life, I am the one who's enjoying it. So, why don't you offer me what I enjoy rather than what you want to enjoy? Have a real relationship, have an authentic relationship with me, Krishna is saying. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. For all the billions of planets and universes that are there, I am the controller. I control the universes and I control the demigods living within all those universes. Which means Krishna is saying, I am the supreme master. There's nobody above me. The word Ishvara means controller. Maheshwara means I control everything. So again, Krishna in the chapter 4 introduces himself as God. In chapter 5, he's cementing his position as God. And then he's saying, but I have so much love in my heart for all the Jivatmas who have been separated from me. Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam. I am your real friend and well-wisher. So if we accept Krishna like this, then we can make steady spiritual progress in our life and be completely under the protection and shelter of Krishna. Not just in this life, but even if we were to get another birth, still we will be protected by Krishna. So Krishna is saying, understand this peace for me at a minimum. But of course, Krishna is going to give a few more instructions in the Bhakti Yoga section. He says, yeah, you can know me, but actually what I really enjoy is when you express your love for me time and time again. Then I really enjoy it. So in conclusion, today's chapter, we talked about stepping into the spiritual world here. How is that? Stepping into a relationship with Krishna. Should I work or should I renounce? Krishna says work is worship. No. Working for Krishna is worship. There are 3 doers: the soul, the super soul, and Prakriti. The soul desires, the super soul has to sanction the desire. Whether that's a good desire or bad desire does not matter. Even bad desires have to be sanctioned reluctantly by the Supreme Lord. And that then Krishna passes on that slip to Mother Durga and says, here you go. This Jivatma asked for this. Give them that. So there are 3 doers. And how do you develop this equal vision? Through the process of karma yoga and this transcendental knowledge? Well, you become this self-realized soul who sees everybody as part and parcel of God. Everybody belongs to the Lord. And that's how you develop this equal vision. And the peace formula is that the Lord is the acceptor of all your yajnas and tapas. The Lord is the supreme controller of all the planets and the demigods. And the Lord is always your best benefactor and your best well-wisher. Therefore, Krishna says, won't you become my friend? If you make me your friend and become my devotee, then I can take you places. I can take you back to the spiritual world. What more do you want? You can enjoy with me all the time there. So this chapter 5, the single word summary is the result. The result of having understood everything, which is the basics, ABCDs of spirituality in chapters 2, 3, and 4. If you apply these basics that you have learned, Krishna says you will have peace in your life. You will have serenity in your life. In tomorrow's chapter, we're going to cover an interesting chapter called Dhyana Yoga, where Krishna talks about Hatha Yoga, Kriya Yoga, how one more way of meditating on Him is one more path. So we'll look at this chapter, and there are some important instructions at the end of the chapter for us, where Krishna says, my devotee is the greatest. And after he says, my devotee is the greatest, begins the Bhakti Yoga section of the Bhagavad Gita. We'll stop here for the day.